Afghani. Well, we can now speak live to Amrullah Saleh, who is a former chief of Afghanistan's National Intelligence Service. He's now the leader of the Afghanistan Green Trend Party. Mr. Saleh, thanks so much for joining us here on the program. We're getting mixed reports here about whether Mullah Omar is actually dead. Have you got any more information?
Thank you, Yalda. The reason I believe he is dead because the Afghan government was contacted by Pakistan Army and they told the Afghan government that Mullah Omar is dead because Mullah Omar was under the protection of the Pakistan Army since the events of 9/11. So this is the word from the mouth of the horse, as we say. So therefore, we cannot contradict it. They were the guys who were protecting it. Now we have to investigate not whether Mullah Omar is dead, but to find out how he is dead, the circumstances of his death, whether he was killed by a good rogue ISI element or he was sold out by a Pakistani colonel to claim the $10 million bounty which was for his head. But because this news was communicated to Afghan government from GHQ Rawalpindi, we don't need to doubt it.
But the Taliban themselves have spoken to a number of sources now and denied that he's actually dead. And Rawalpindi themselves would deny that they were actually protecting Mullah Omar.
Yes, you know, Mullah Omar, after 9/11, for a while, he was in the Balochistan area of Pakistan. Then they shifted him to Karachi, and for many years he was in Karachi. He was neither a strategist nor an operator. He was a mythical figure that the ISI had created using the circumstances in Afghanistan, the problems we had in the decade of 90s in our country. And therefore, he was under their protection. And his name was being used for all these atrocities, killing and destruction. And do I really know that this was communicated to Afghanistan from their interlocutors back in GHQ Rawalpindi? Yes, I know it like back of my hand.
You have confirmation yourself of that?
I have confirmation that Pakistan military and intelligence, they contacted the Afghan government and they said to the Afghan government, you can announce the death of Mullah Omar. So why they are so sure? As I said, Mullah Omar was living in their safe house for all these years. And so one layer of myth and mystery is gone. One X factor is solved. And we are now directly facing to a naked reality, which is that on the other side of the conflict, it has been Pakistan Army and ISI. We never doubted it, but for some cynicals and apologists, there was always a factor of Mullah Omar. And now that they say Mullah Omar has died 2 years ago, it means at least in the last 2 years, all the atrocities, killings, and terror attacks have been conducted in his name by Pakistanis, and in fact, he was never a factor.
But where does this leave peace talks now, given that Afghanistan and the Pakistani government are working very closely to try and reach a peace agreement with the Taliban?
The first round of talks was a huge success for the Afghan government, not because it produced any result, because under a lot of morale pressure, the Pakistanis had to reciprocate the goodwill of Ashraf Ghani, and they brought the Taliban in the negotiations table, and the negotiations were started in Murree, a resort town outside Islamabad. But remember, Yalda, that these talks, the first round of talks was ISI-controlled, ISI-owned, only Afghan-led. And if we want these talks to get to anywhere, they have to be Afghan-owned, Afghan-controlled, and Afghan-led.
What do you make of the timing of this announcement? I mean, you're claiming that the intelligence service in Pakistan informed the Afghan government that they should make the announcement that he's dead. I mean, what do you make of the timing of this?
I think there are a number of factors why they are admitting now that Mullah Omar is dead. Why not 2 years ago? They have allowed the Taliban to talk to the Afghan government, so which means the factor of a state, the factor of government in Afghanistan is now very solid, and it's going to be permanent. So Taliban are not going to be a toppling force. They will be at best a massive headache for Afghanistan, and therefore Pakistanis have to, in one way or another, seek a negotiated settlement where their interest is protected. They have lost hope of redominating Afghanistan by a proxy.
So
and also,
I mean, you say that he was a fictitious character that we haven't really seen. We've seen one image of him. I mean, what do you make of the Taliban nexus now and the subgroups? Where does this leave them?
You see, you talk to any Taliban field commander, and I have the experience of talking to many dozens of them, and I have experience of talking to some top Taliban leaders when they were in power. I was a member of the negotiating team with them in Geneva, in Turkmenistan, and also in Tashkent. So I have first-hand experience about the Taliban. In the recent years, no one had seen Mullah Omar, and all these strategic messaging was done in his name, whereas we all know Mullah Omar was an illiterate person. He was not a strategic thinker, he was not an academic, and he knew very little about the operations. So he was put in this mythical space where everything was done in his name from the Pakistani side. Now, for us, it is not a big news that he is dead, because for us he was not a factor. For us, the real factor on the other side of the equation has always been the establishment in Pakistan and the Pakistani army. Where will it lead, all this, with the NATO withdrawing largely in 2016, and also the Afghan army is doing the fight right now? What we have proven in the last several months to the Taliban is, you are wrong. Afghan army without presence of American mentors can hold, and they can fight. Yes, you can protract the fighting, but you are not going to be a toppling force like the 90s. Afghan state is a solid state. It has problems like any other government in the world. Yeah.